Hi, good evening all. This is Vishal Singhal from Cellstride, your host for today. So we have Mr. Ramesh Babu Lakshmanan. He's a deep learning researcher at Cellstride AI Lab. Very expert and high expertise in NLP domain. And he will be taking us through deep learning and finance domain. So good opportunity to ask a lot of questions to him. And uh, this session is being recorded and will be made live on our Cellstride YouTube channel. Will be available on our YouTube channel in 3 to 4 days time. So, suggest if you want to look at it, you can see that after 3 days. And already I'm seeing questions. So yeah, I am all good. So there are some gentlemen from Italy and around the world. So thank you all for joining. So let's get started. I'll transfer the controls to Ramesh. Ramesh, are you ready?
Yes, Vishal.
So did you get the prompt for? Yeah, we are able to see your screen. Go ahead.
Okay. Okay, just a second. Let me put it in slideshow mode. Okay. Good evening, all. Welcome to the session on deep learning in finance. And specifically, in this session, we are going to talk about how do we detect the credit risk using a deep learning model. So I am Ramesh. I am a Cellstride AI researcher, and the link what I have given is the GitHub link to see my projects. About myself briefly, I have 15 years of overall experience, primarily in banking and financial services domain, and mostly into the project management, where I have managed multiple projects with time and material fixed price managed services. Specialized in product scope and financial management and continuous improvements. I also do regular running, though I am not doing anything as of now owing to the COVID situation. We are slowly implementing. So I currently work in an organization which specializes on credit card processing payments. So there is a lot of analytics that we are implementing, mainly in the areas of delinquency or identify the defaulting customers, because credit card, right? Usage of credit card comes with a lot of benefits as well as risks. So deep learning is one. Machine learning / deep learning has actually getting into a lot of financial areas. For instance, stock price management, delinquency identification. And even in other areas where the risk portfolios management and identification of risks, because there are so many different risks in finance domains. So just getting into the agenda today, we are going to cover one of the risks that we frequently face in our financial domain. So you can stop me at any point of time and ask me questions if you have any doubts or if I am not clear on what we are explaining. Okay. So we are going to briefly, the agenda is listed here. We are going to touch upon briefly upon the financial terminologies and what is the problem statement that we are going to solve, and how are we going to use deep learning model, which is where we have given that CNN for text. And finally, I have tried to implement different parameters for the deep learning models, and how and what is the inference based on the different parameters for CNN model. So that is what we are going to see now. Just getting into the important terms, this is just for a reference. Mostly if we get into any financial services, right, you may encounter, these are domain specific terms, which will mostly comes in terms of requirements. For instance, a credit refers to credit. Some of these terms we use day to day. For instance, credit refers to an agreement to purchase a good or a service. Along with the credit, it comes the different parties involved in the credit. For instance, creditor is the one who lends the money. For instance, the banks, you can take banks, for example, those acts as a creditor. And debtor is a person or a party who actually takes money from another party, that is from creditor. So the parties involved in any credit transaction will be debtor party or a creditor party, and the agreement which is getting executed during that point of time is called credit. Okay. So basically what happens, banks, you go approach a bank, you ask for a credit, they will extend the credit to you, but it comes with certain risk to them, because at any point of time, though they may be very profitable in terms of earning the interest rates, but any point of time you may get into a defaulting situation where you will not be able to pay the money back, where a debtor may not be able to pay the money back, the principal back to the creditor. So in that cases, there is always a risk, because it's not only in banks, right? Even in everyday transactions, we always have some sort of risks, though most of them are low risks. But in terms of banking transactions, banks are very diligent because they want to ensure that the risk is minimal. For that, they actually do what is called as a credit risk management. So they do identify the probability of default, which means that what is the probability that a person or an entity defaults on the loan that is given. So this probability of default is something which is identified during the beginning, before they extend the credit, and this will be continuously monitored and revised or reviewed based on your repaying capacity, because once we take a loan or credit, right, it may extend for maybe 10 years or 15 years, right? So the person may default at any point of time. So it is important that banks keep a tab on the person or an entity to ensure that the probability of default doesn't go low based on the current repaying capacity. For instance, if you take the current situation, right, COVID situation, many people would have defaulted, but RBI has extended a moratorium where people need not pay for a certain period of time. But owing to the unprecedented economic situation, right, there are chances that many people would have defaulted, and those all come under unexpected loss. With the default comes the loss, and the loss can again categorized into two, which is expected loss, unexpected loss. Expected loss is always there because when you take a risk, banks always factor in certain account that you will default. And if you default, what could be the loss? It will be constantly calculated. But an unprecedented situation like COVID scenario, where you never know what is going to happen next moment, there are a lot of uncertainties, we get into what is called as unexpected loss. So banks calculate both expected loss and unexpected loss at any point of time given the situations. So in addition, there are also other terms which are frequently used in the financial domain. One of them is default. Default is nothing but you get into an event where you are not able to pay the money or loan that you have taken back to the bank. And the way how default is mostly handled is either by collateral or risk-based pricing. When I say collateral, let us say you want to purchase you want to take a home loan. Banks may take your property document, and that is being used as a collateral. So in the case of default, they can actually liquidate that collateral and recover the money from you. Or it goes into the other category where risk-based pricing. Risk-based pricing is nothing but if bank think or a debtor thinks that you are more likely to default because probably your income is low, or the industry that you are working may not give you sufficient money to pay the interest back, they may actually increase the interest rates so as to ensure that they get maximum amount of money when you pay back. So for instance, instead of giving you a home loan for 8%, they may give you a home loan for 10% or 12%. So that is a risk-based pricing. So banks employ multiple ways to mitigate the risks. And in case, we get into a default, the creditor, the debtor get into default, the banks have to follow, or the financial institutions have to follow a lot of legal routes to ensure that the money is recovered. So there are enormous costs associated with it, and the costs are grouped together and can be called as collection costs. Okay. So these are the brief the important terms that we should be aware whenever we are coming across a financial problem. Okay. Now, Okay. Let me get into the problem statement for today. So our problem statement is simple. It is we have details of customers who have taken loan, and we have also the details of the people who have taken the loan and who have repaid back or who has not repaid. So there are two kinds of customers, right? Either they pay you the money back or close the loan, or they get into a default where you don't have, they get into default where you are not able to recover the money back, right? So delinquency is a term which means that the person or the entity has defaulted, and based on the past delinquent data, we need to come up with the credit risk model. When I say credit risk model, we need to actually come up with a model that will tell what is the probability that the person will default given certain parameters. Okay. So one constraint for this is when you along with any model, right? A model may not completely may not be 100% right? There is always a chance of inaccuracy. So what will happen? There are two kind of scenarios which will happen. See, probably the model may say may identify a good customer as a bad customer. When you say good customer, a customer who is willing to pay, but the model may detect that person as a defaulting person, or vice versa. A person is a defaulting person, but the model may identify him as a good customer, right? So what will happen in this case, right? There are certain trade-offs in both the cases. For instance, if a good customer is identified as a bad customer, right? So what will happen? The banks may reject the loan to him. In that case, the banks may lose a good customer who may have actually given you the right interest for your product and would have earned the money. So bank would have lost a chance of earning a good money from a good customer. But if you think about other case, right, where a bank actually, if the model predicts a particular person as a good customer, though the person is a defaulting customer, the banks may get into a huge loss, because since the model predicted him as a good, we actually model predicted him as a good, though he's not a good person, he or she is not a good person, then the banks may have to take a huge loss. So here we want to make sure that the cost of classifying a defaulted customer as good customer is expensive. When I say expensive, actually it should not, you may have, I mean, the model can predict as many good customers as bad customers, but at any point of time, it should always make sure that the defaulting customer is predicted right. So that is an important constraint, and that is an important trade-off that we need to think of before we actually finalize the model. Okay. So the kind of approaches that I have taken here are to solve this specific problem is initially I applied a machine learning algorithms and evaluated the performance. There are certain classification parameters, that metrics that we actually evaluate. So this, if you see this particular problem statement, right, it is nothing but a classification problem. A classification problem in the sense you need to classify, given certain parameters or given certain features, whether the person is likely to default or not. So you're going to identify the person is a good or bad customer. So this is a traditional classification problem. And for this classification problem, I have tried different approaches, which I'm going to show. We tried with the machine learning algorithms and evaluated the performance. Then I applied certain deep learning techniques, which is primarily CNN, convolution neural network, and evaluated their performance. Then I'm going to show you actually how the performance varies based on the techniques that we have applied. Okay, let me show you the data set that I have taken. This, I hope you are able to see my file. So this is the data set. The number of parameters or features is less actually, but in the real scenario, there will be huge and lots of parameters that financials or banks institutes consider. But right now we have taken only little less parameters, so that it makes certain sense for this session. For instance, the age of a person who is taking the loan, the debt ratio is nothing but the loan, the debt payments divided by the total income that you earn, and age, monthly income is nothing but the income that a person earns, and number of times 30 to 59 days past due not worse is nothing but banks generally categorize or they generally bucket default into different ways. For instance, if you have to pay the interest on a specific date, and if you let us say extend it by 30 days, then you fall into a 30-day defaulting bucket. Sometimes you may pay by 60th day, then you may get into a 30 to 60-day bucket, or you may get into 60 to 90 days, the 90th bucket. After you delay by more than 3 months, probably 90 days, then you may get into a different bucket, probably a delinquency bucket, which will be treated differently. So for different buckets, the banks takes different, the financial institutes take different approaches. So here we are actually telling that how many times the borrower has been paid, has extended his repayment time, whether between 30 and 59 days during the whole time of repayment. And revolving utilization of unsecured lines is in addition to the loans that we have taken, whether the person holds a credit card, and if there is a credit card, what is the total balance on the credit cards, because a person's repaying capacity is decided by so many different things, right? It could be the monthly income, it could be the debt ratio, it could be how much balance you have on your credit card, or it could be age. For instance, younger people may likely to work longer, so their repaying capacity could be better. When you take an old age senior citizen, probably the repaying capacity will be lesser compared to the younger age. So the different factors are taken into consideration before arriving at probability of default, and these are the important factors. Serious delinquency in 2 years is whoever has not made any payment beyond 90 days, or whoever has not paid interest at all, which they get into delinquency bucket. So that is what is used as our target variable, which we will use it as, which will take either 0 or 1. 1 means the person has gotten into this specific scenario where he or she has not paid beyond 90 days, or he has not returned the money at all. So we are going to take all these as input features, and we are going to take this as an output feature. We will use this as a target class, and we will use this as feed this as an input to the model to decide which customer is likely to get into a default and which customer is not. Okay. One thing about any financial statements or transactions or data set, if you take, okay, the common thing is it is always highly imbalanced. Even if even I have like 150,000 rows of data here with 10 different features, including the target features. But if I see a good or bad customer ratio, right, we always get like 90% good customer and 10% bad customer. So with this kind of highly imbalanced data, it adds a lot of constraints to the way how we predict, because an imbalanced data set will always lead to wrong results at any point of time, unless you tune your models to ensure that the data set imbalance is addressed. Okay. See, common sense will tell you that if you don't go for any model, just by seeing this specific data set, right, at any point of time, 9 out of 10 customers are gonna pay you back, and 1 customer will always default, right? So this itself is a good model. You can just do a classification, right? So a model should not get into this kind of a classification just by seeing this specific data set. So we will see how we are also solving that problem along with this technique. Okay.
So one question is there, Ramesh.
Yeah, Vishal.
So question is, for each customer we have 1 row, correct?
Yeah, correct.
Okay.
Yeah, this is the list of customers, and for each customer we have 1 row.
Right. Okay. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Just give me a moment. Let me open my code as well. So. Okay. So let me start off. So we have got the problem. We have understood the constraints. We have the data set with you. Now, as a data scientist, what is the next thing that you have to do? So let us say we are a traditional person, traditional mindset-oriented person who wishes to apply a machine classifier. Because even I would like to say that even though the algorithms have advanced in such a way, typically the financial institutes still go with machine learning algorithm, like simple algorithms such as logistic regression or a simple statistical technique to identify to get into the solution for any of the problems. So it is not surprising if the banks just use a machine learning classifier and arrives at a model. So we have followed the traditional way how bank does it. So what I did is I took first random forest classifier and nearest neighbors classifier and try to apply these classifiers on my data set. Okay, so let me get into the code and show you. Okay, and one more thing is with any classifier comes a lot of different metrics that you need to evaluate, which are precision, recall, and F1 score. What I show here in the table is an metrics which have come out of the model performance. Okay. Okay, so this is my code. It's there in GitHub. I have taken up data, read it. I've just displayed the data here. So I'm just doing a pre-processing of the data because there are certain null values, and I'm just showing you how many null values are there for specific fields and how I'm going to fix the null values. These are general pre-processing techniques that we use. I take up a median value and then fix that. This is my data distribution where you can see that my class 0, which is a good customer, is so many good customers compared with bad customers. Gives a little room for model to actually figure out how to classify. This is a heat map. You can use it to understand the correlation between the different fields. And let me show you that. Okay. Now I hope you are aware of random forest or k nearest neighbor classifier. Random forest or k nearest classifiers are simple machine learning techniques that can be used as a classifier in different circumstances. So I use the same here. Let me show you. Okay, so here I have taken the k nearest neighbors classifier, random forest classifier, and I have applied the model. Let me scroll down and show you. So I have experimented with the different models. I'll just show you how that matrix has come up. 6.03. Okay. So the precision and recall F1 score for the KNN classifier primarily is this one. So what it means is for a class 0, you have 0.93 precision and recall of 1, F1 score of 0.96. So what is precision and recall? So this is an F1 score. So precision, recall, and F1 score are nothing but the parameters which is used for calculate for computation of classification. When you say recall, it is nothing but whether we are able to identify all customers, I mean all defaulting customers as, sorry, all non-defaulting customers as non-defaulting. And precision is out of customers that whom we have identified as non-defaulting or defaulting, depending on the class, whether we have identified everybody as, whether we have done a right identification. Okay, so just to give you a quick idea, you can see the inference here, right? You can see based on the machine learning classifier technique that we have applied, we have got for class 0, which is the good customer, 0.93 precision and 1 recall. Okay, and if you look at the accuracy, it says 0.93, and a macro average and a weighted average is also considered primarily to see how to ensure that the classes does not have any impact when you look at holistically. Now, this is the way how it is computed, the macro average and weighted average. Okay, now let us say you run this model and come up with this kind of metrics, right? You look at it to accuracy and you see that, okay, it is a 0.93% accurate, right? This model is 93% accurate. Wow, my model is working good. No, you should not get into that. Why this model is 93% accurate? It is primarily because your class 0, which has got a huge data, is predicted good, whereas the class 1, which is very, very important for the banks to ensure that the defaulting customers, one is the defaulting customer, is identified right. Okay, but if you see this specific line, okay, here your precision for 1 is 0.36 and recall is 0.03. So what does that mean? When you say 0.03, it is considered as 3%, right? 3% is 0.03. So you are able to actually identify only 3% of defaulting customers. Okay, even though you are able to identify all good customers, in terms of bad customers, you are able to identify only 3%. Now imagine a situation where you are able to identify out of 100 people only 3 bad customers, but you are able to identify all good customers, right? The banks may get into the heavy loss, because 97% of customers are going to be, the bad customers are going to be calculated as good customers, in which case there will be heavy loss to the bank. And that is the inference that we have got out of this specific research. The recall is only 0.03, which means that only 3% of customers are identified as bank. Okay, and 97% of customers are.
Another question is, have you applied class weight to random forest?
Which one?
Have you applied class weight to random forest?
No, I have not applied class weight to random forest here. So we have done the balancing, data set balancing in the next set of slides. So here I haven't applied the class weight. Yeah.
Sure.
So this accuracy value is a trap which we should not actually consider before taking any decision, and we have to keenly look into this specific section to understand how best our model works, right? So based on this, we would actually straight away go ahead and reject this model, saying that we should not be doing this specific kind of model. Now, what are the other alternatives? I can either tune into the hyperparameters of these models and see how best the accuracy improves, or alternatively, I went into a deep learning model to see how best it can fit in. Now, going to the deep learning model. So what is the deep learning approach that I have taken? We have taken convolution neural network, right? The moment, I mean, for the people who are working in deep learning model, you all would know that a moment a convolution neural network strikes our mind, we always think about images, right? But why not for text? Because CNN actually is very good in capturing the specific features. So why not we apply CNN for texts and see how best it can actually take in, it can actually get in a right set of features from even the sentences or non-image inputs. So what I am showing here is a simple example of how a text can be classified or used as a input for CNN to get some output vectors that can be further used for classification. So this is not related to our problem, but just to explain from CNN perspective, let us say we have a statement here, I like this movie very much, right? So this statement can be used by CNN to extract the right features, and these features can be used as an input to actually arrive at a classifier. So just to give you an example, say for instance, you have these many words, right? And these are the different dimensions for each of these words. And here in the example, we are just showing you 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 filters. A CNN always comes with the filters, and each of the filters actually gets into identifying different features from the input. Okay, so here we have used 6 filters, and with the different sizes. For instance, filter size of 2, 3, and 4. That is what you are seeing here for 1, 2, 3, 4 size filter, 3 size, and 2 size. And output of each of these filters is nothing but the feature maps that you get. For each of these, you get a feature map. Okay. Then this feature map is nothing but a weights or a vector, and that can be used for doing. Let us say you do a max pooling. Max pooling is nothing but a dimensional reduction technique, and more generalizing the features. So now when you use max pooling, right, you get reduced dimension features. And finally, you can concatenate all those features as a single 6 dimension feature vector. And this feature vector can be used as a classifier input, probably a dense network, and that can give you an output of probably 1 or 0s depending on how we train it. So typical to any other networks, we can use CNNs as well to our to non-image, primarily text or other segments, and can arrive at a good set of features that can be concatenated or based on how we want to design the model. It can be used as an input to other classifications. So here in our model, right, we are going to do almost same thing, but just a second. Yeah, this is the kind of architecture that I have used for doing the credit risk modeling. So here you would see that we are going to feed in the feature inputs, which is our data set, and we are going to feed into convolution with ReLU activation, and we are going to do a pooling. So this is an extra one which I have not opted for. So I have done with I just stopped with this convolution plus ReLU followed by pooling, then connected to the fully connected layers followed by activations. I have tried the different activations, probably softmax activation and sigmoid activation, to see how the output is coming in. Okay, so this is primarily the architecture that we have gone with to do the deep learning technique to arrive at the customers. So once you feed in the feature inputs, the CNN takes or reads all those features and passes into the pooling where we have used max pooling. Then we are passing into the dense fully connected layers. Then we are passing into the then we are passing the output to a classifier, which will give you an output of good or a bad customer. Right? This is how the flow is. So I will just show you how in the next slides. Right? I will just show you how we have applied this particular architecture to my model. Okay. Let me get into the code and show you. Okay, so I have used a sequential, I have used one-dimensional conventional convolution. Then we have done a max pooling followed by flattening, then a dense layer. We have also taken in additional things for to avoid overfitting and also to ensure that we stop at the right time. One is early stopping to avoid overfitting, and model checkpoint to actually save the models with to save the models whenever there is an improvement in the validation accuracy. So here you see I have split the data into train and test data sets, and I have taken in a lot of input metrics to compute the for classification. And here is where I am defining my CNN model with the number of classes to batch size 64 and 10 epochs, and we have resized the inputs training and test. Then here we have defined the model, the sequential followed by convolution layer, then a max pooling, then a dense layer with 512 neurons, and additional layer which is output for softmax. And we are printing the summary. Then I'm using cross entropy loss because of softmax, and initially I'm using RMS prop optimizer. then creating a model checkpoint followed by early stopping to avoid overfitting, then running that model, evaluating the score, then actually primarily these are all the lines of sentences, lines of code to actually print the output, to visualize the output. We also would actually show you the ROC curve, ROC score, which is nothing but a plot between false positive rate and true positive rate to arrive at how the model actually works. Because once you look into a confusion matrix, right? For any classifier, we actually get, we need to evaluate what is known as a confusion matrix. And confusion matrix will actually tell you the number of true positives, the number of false positives, the number of true negatives and false negatives, based on which actually the matrix gets computed. Okay. Now once I run this model, right, and this is what I was showing you in the first model. So I have like designed 4 different models, which is like 4 different parameters that I have used for this deep learning model. So at the first time, right, this is the model parameters that we have used. The filter size of 32, a kernel with a kernel size of 3, 32 filters with kernel size of 3, and a max pooling, followed by a dense layer, the ReLU activation, the RMS prop as an optimizer, softmax for the final layer activation, and this is the loss, and these are the ones to avoid overfitting. So once we run this model, right, we closely look into this particular model. This is the output that we have got. Okay. Now, if you look into this, this is what we call as a classification report. This comes as a classification report. This is the output over here. If you look into the classification report of this, when compared with the previous one, sorry, compared with what we got of the machine learning model, right? Here you can see that this is the accuracy, which is 0.93, and the precision and recall and the F1 score for this class 1 is 0.36, 0.03, and 0.05. Okay. Now straight away applying this the same input to a convolution layer gives you a slight better result, which is a defaulting customer class of precision 0.61 but a recall of 0.13. And F1 score of 0.21, a slight improvement compared with a previous model. Okay, so it seems this model is better than the previous model in terms of detecting the customers per the default probability of default customers, slightly better. But is it any good to use this as a model? No, right? Because we want to ensure that we maximize in identifying the defaulting customers. Though the good customers, accuracy, precision, recall, everything is good, we are more interested in this class of customers who can actually tell the banks how good customer is going to be in terms of defaulting, right? So we need to improve this specific row, right? So what are the techniques that I used to improve the precision, recall, F1 score, and in general the accuracy of the model with different parameters? Okay, so what I did next is to continue the same CNN model with slight change. One is you see here, right? I have highlighted certain things. There is a change in the optimizer. I forgot to highlight, sorry. From RMS prop optimizer, I went to Adam optimizer. And in terms of activation, from softmax move to sigmoid. And in terms of loss, instead of categorical cross entropy, we went to binary cross entropy because sigmoid primarily produces an binary output. And since it's a binary classification, we used binary cross entropy, and rest of the parameters still remain the same. For instance, it's still 32 filters with kernel size of 3 and max pooling of 3 and dense layer with 512. And once we run this model with the same set of input, here is what you see, where you can visualize the loss versus epochs. One is the training loss, other one is validation loss, the other one is accuracy. One is the training accuracy, which keeps improving, and the validation accuracy, which moves around that, and a confusion matrix, which is a true positive, true positive for the classes, and false positive, false negative. Then the ROC curve, and the classification report, which is what I have highlighted here. And in this specific model, right, with these two slight changes, what I have seen, what I have highlighted in red is where the parameter value is getting reduced. And what we have seen, what we are showing in green is the parameter values which get improved, which is showing an improvement. Now you can see that there is a reduction in the precision, but there is an improvement in the recall. Okay, and there is an improvement in the F1 score, and also then slight improvement in the accuracy. So how do we infer this specific model? There is a reduction in the precision, right? Which means that more and more good customers are getting classified into bad customers, which could be okay for a bank or financial institutes to accept, given this constraint of expensive bad customers. And the model is detecting around 16% of bad customers as bad, which is better than this, but definitely not great. In fact, not good, because only 16%. No, it's not really. F1 score has shown improvement, but it's because the recall has shown a slight improvement. But still, can we go ahead and use this specific model? No, because there are only 16% of bad customers detected as bad, which is not really good, because we may end up with 84% of bad customers as good customers, and the banks will get into the heavy loss. So how do we better improve this specific parameter? Let us get into the next model. This is on what is primarily the difference between the earlier model to this model is nothing but I'm taking a balanced class approach. Okay, so what is a balanced class approach? As I showed you earlier, any financial data set always comes with a lot of imbalance. So we have used a data distribution. Here you can see the data distribution where around 90% of customers are good customers and only 10% of bad customers are there. And with this specific constraint, right, it is very difficult for the model to actually predict the right classification. So how best can we improve? How can we adjust anything on the balance, class imbalance? Yes, we have tried that. There are different ways to actually make the imbalanced classes as balanced. One is you can go for undersampling, where you take the majority of the samples, and where you take as where you sample the majority classes lesser, so that you get into the minority classes and majority classes are equal, in which case the number of samples will get reduced from majority classes, so that minority class and majority classes are same. The other technique is oversampling, where you increase or generate data for the minority classes and make the sample for minority and majority classes equal, in which case the minority class sample will get bumped up to majority class samples. So I'm just showing you the technique that I have used is SMART. Let me show you that over here, which is synthetic minority oversampling technique. This is the code where we have used SMART to oversample. So when I say you can either undersample or oversample. So when I say oversample, I'm trying to create an additional data set for my minority class, which is class 1, so that my class 1 and class 0 data are going to be same. So before SMART, this is how the count is. See here, right? 1,12,000, 1,12,000 for class 0 and 7,980 for the training data set. And now using the SMART algorithm, actually we are getting into it does an oversampling, and after oversampling you see there is the class size is same for both class 1 and class 0. The data set is same, so it does a synthetic generation of the data, and it does it does a nice job of generating huge data from the inputs that we have given, and gets into a right balanced data set. So let us see once we apply this specific data set, right, how it is going to perform. I have used that specific data set. to run my model. Yeah, so here is where we have called the model and error name. So that's the only change that I have done. Everything else remains the same. The convolution layer followed by max pool, the dense layer, the optimizer is Adam, activation is sigmoid, it's a cross entropy, a list of mole chunks. Then only change that we have done is this balanced class approach. So once I started doing that, right, you can see that how the classification parameters have changed. Just keeping a close watch on the class 1, the precision has reduced from our earlier model. From 0.59 it has come down to 0.32, but our recall has certainly increased, which means this model is able to predict at least 50% of bad customers as bad when we compare with the earlier models, which is a huge improvement. For instance, a 35% improvement in increase in the recall. So out of every 100 bad customers, this model is able to detect 50 customers, which is definitely great just by using a balanced class approach. And our F1 score has also improved from 0.25 to 0.39, primarily because of the great improvement in the recall, right? So this is our inference based on this model. There is a reduction in the precision, but probably we are getting more and more false positives for more and more good customers getting classified as bad, right, for this specific class. But considering that this model has shown a great improvement in recall for 1, now that we are able to detect 50% customers, and even an F1 score has increased. Okay, this model is certainly definitely better, a lot better, and compared with all the previous models that we have used, just because we used an additional balanced class sampling, right? So is it possible to tune this model again and make it any better? Yes, I again tried an additional approach, which is the threshold approach. So what we have done here is, so this is a visualization for our balanced class approach. These are the confusion matrix, the AU score that we compute, and you can see the classification report. Okay. Now what is the additional thing? Now in the next model, how are we going to tune it? Okay. So if we now one thing I wanted to say is, since we are using a sigmoid activation, right? How does the classifier classifies the input sample, classifies based on the input samples? Okay, it will have a threshold. The threshold, if it is beyond a certain threshold, it will be classified as class 1. If it is less than certain threshold, it will be classified as class 0. So that is how sigmoid curve works. I hope you would have all seen a sigmoid how it works. After certain threshold, it will be detected as a specific class, and below a threshold, it will be detected as a different class. Okay. Now, so what I did is, I was trying to set a different thresholds. So by default, it uses a threshold of 0.5 based on which the customers are classified. So why can't we go ahead and lower the threshold and see whether there is an improvement in the model? Because there is a chance that the threshold for classifying is actually less, whereas the sigmoid is using more, or the threshold may be more, whereas the sigmoid is using less. So why don't we try a different approach and see how best it works? So for that, I'm just trying to use this specific code where I'm just trying to get the output of the model. We're trying to get the probability. This is the probability output, right? Sigmoid gives you a probability output for both the classes. In one class, it will be, these are the, what I have printed here is only the output for class 1, right? If you see, the probability is very, very less, and the other probability is more. That is where it ends up classifying most of them as class 0 customers, right? Now, what I have done is, I have lowered the threshold for the customers. Okay, so earlier from 0.5, so it is entirely up to us how we lower the threshold, but caution has to be taken, because whether we lower or make a change, right, the business would always be in consultation whether or not this lowering or increasing the threshold is good, because it has to suit the business needs. For now, I have just taken a threshold of only 0.05. From 0.5, I have actually reduced it to 0.05, and I have, by setting the threshold, I have actually altered the values which are coming out of the prediction. Okay. Now, if you see, right, earlier, for the same model, it was predicting 409 as the sum, which is that summation of the output of the classes, right? There are only 409 class ones. Now, after lowering the threshold, right, you can set any threshold value. Based on the threshold value, the predicted class labels will also change, and there is a huge jump in the predictions that has come out. And if you see, I started applying the same approach for my model. It's the same convolution layer followed by max pool, the dense layer, optimizer Adam, sigmoid cross entropy, balanced class approach. Then I have lowered the thresholds. This lowering of the threshold is again has to be taken in, has to be considered depending upon the business needs. Now, when we apply this specific model, right, we can actually see there is a big jump in the recall in the classification metrics that we are getting. Okay. So you see that we are able to identify a recall of, we are getting a recall of 0.8, and there is an improvement in the accuracy from 0.89 to 0.94. Okay, but there is a reduction in the F1 score, and there is a big reduction in the precision. Okay, so what it tells is at least 80% of bad customers we are able to identify as bad. Okay, but we are actually also classifying a lot of good customers as bad customers. So this is where we need to take a trade-off. We need to find out what is the trade-off between recall and precision, which one is better. We need to take that into consideration. This involves a lot of business decisions, the cost considerations. And the F1 score has also gone down because of a big drop in the precision, right? It has come to 0.29, and we are achieving an accuracy of 0.94. But given that this model has actually identified, has gotten a recall of 0.8, right? We can actually, compared with other models, the earlier models that we have used, right? We can see a big leap, right, from starting from 0.03 to 0.13 to 0.16 and 0.51 with balanced class, and 0.80 with all these parameters along with the threshold lowering. So this has definitely yielded a lot of better results compared with earlier results, and considering that an accuracy of 100% is never really possible. Are we okay with the kind of recall for this customer, for this specific class along with this accuracy? This is a decision which will be taken by the stakeholders involved, and will arrive at whether or not this model can be used for further extended for any prediction. Okay, so the moment if you are okay with this model, we can use this model to make prediction and understand whether or not a given customer is likely to default or not using the model.predict function. Yeah, you can use the specific function, and you can arrive at the class label, which will give you 0 or 1. 1 will tell whether the person is going to likely default, or 0 will tell it's not going to default. So this is how we have actually from here where we want to identify where we given the details of customers, we wanted to understand the credit risk, which is nothing but a delinquency of the customer, which is the probability that a person is going to default, from the machine learning approach to using the deep learning approach with the different hyperparameter tunings. We arrived at this specific model. And what you see here in support is the test data set of around 30,000, which is split into the different classes and the values that we have got. So primarily, if you see this, our entire focus is on how best we can actually detect the customers who are likely to default, so that the banks don't get into banks or financial institutions don't get into the problem of extending loans to the probable default customers. So that is our goal, and that is what we have actually achieved by means of different models. And this is not the end actually. For instance, we can use Keras tuner as well to identify the additional right set of parameters. For instance, you can tune the parameters of optimizer, learning rate. You can change the learning rate probably, and you can even play around with different sampling techniques, or we can actually see how the thresholds will work. So there are different ways we can tune further and can make an improvement in the precision or recall. But as soon as we see that model has reached certain precision, depending on the business needs, right, we can actually decide that as the best model and can use for further predictions. And if you see that if a lot of predictions are going wrong, we can again go back to the table and start changing either our algorithms or the parameters to see what will best fit. At this moment, this model looks good, so we can use this for further prediction. So that is how we can arrive at the defaulting customer, or probability, or how we can arrive at the probability of default, which is this probability.
Question is there.
Hello?
So, yeah, there's a question there. I put it on chat if you can see that. There are two parts to it.
Okay. Have you done machine learning? Have you done machine learning after SMART? I did machine learning after SMART, but my accuracy was not great compared with the deep learning model, though I have not put it over here. But the accuracy, the precision and recall of after SMART for machine learning is lesser compared with the CNN based model. And can you explain support, which seems to be constant? Can you explain support? Seems to be constant across the models. 1 minute. Support. Okay, support is nothing but the data, number of data points, number of data samples as a part of the test set. So what it means is like our training data set, our test set will also composed of different classes. So you can see that there are 27,957 classes of 957 data points of class 0 and 2043 data points of class 1, which is used for testing purpose. And this is constant across all the models because we have used the same test set to validate our, to evaluate our parameters. Did that answer the question?
Yeah, likely. So, any other questions, audience? Yes. So, could you share the GitHub link where the source code exists?
Sure, it is there in this presentation.
Can you put it on chat? I will just put it across so people can copy that there.
Sure.
Now put your contact slide at the last so people can contact you if required, and also connect with you on LinkedIn or see your GitHub profile from there.
Okay.
You shared it. Okay. So any other questions, audience? So I've sent his GitHub profile to all on chat. If anybody else has any questions, please ask now. So I think all have been asked. So thank you all for attending. So I would like to close here. We are on time today. So any more coming in? Yeah. So people are saying Good session, very good explanation. Thank you very much. And look forward to more sessions.
Yeah, thank you, audience. So the primarily wanted to demonstrate that even we can start applying CNN techniques to actually better our accuracy in financial domains. I mean, non-image domains. Hope the audience got the message, and we can explore more as we go along.
Sure. Thank you all for attending, and thank you, Ramesh, for your time and session. So
Thank you,
this video
Vishal.
will be available soon. Yeah.
Thank you, Vishal. Thank you for hosting. Yeah.
Have a good day.